back to OpenLine. Dr. Shawn Joseph is here talking about Metro Schools. Metro Schools Superintendent Dr. Joseph talking about the budget, talking about other issues. Let's take some calls. I've certainly asked a lot of questions. Let's go to Helen. Hello, Helen.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Okay. First of all, I think we're spending too much money on administration than we are on the schools and the kids. And the children, I've worked with a lot of the kids that are coming out of schools and things. They don't even know how to add, subtract, or use their multiplication tables. They can't. Most of them can't even write. Now they want to change the clocks in the schools and things to digital because they can't tell the time. What have we become? But none of these children cannot come out and count change back to a customer. They can't figure up anything in their head. They've got to have a computer to do it. Do you realize if the electricity went off, what would happen?
All right, well, let's talk about, she talked about salaries, and then she went into kids aren't learning what they used to learn.
I'll start with the second part, and then I'll back into the first. But the second part, I would say, listen, the quality of education and the number of students who are meeting standards in our district is rising. We have some of the highest standards in the state of Tennessee than any place in the country, and that's a good thing. And we've been pushing towards those standards. I mean, I love graduation season. As I've been going around to schools, I mean, we have thousands of children that are going off to some great universities and going off to some great technical schools, are going to serve us in the military. So, you know, it's a generalization that she made, and I'd happily, if you email me at, or if you just call our hotline number, I think it's 259-INFO, I can get you specific information about some of the recent studies that have been done to show how our kids prepared. The Public Education Foundation, actually, if you go to their website, they have a study that has been done to show what percentage of our kids are graduating, going off to college and graduating. And you'll see we've got a long way to go, but we're making some good progress. And in terms of administrative salaries, again, we did a salary compensation study, and it showed that our administrative salaries are on par with regional salaries.
Tennessee Ready testing. I've seen in Williamson County enormous frustration. I know there's been frustration in Davidson County. What impact, what have you seen as far as Tennessee Ready, and what are we doing about it?
Yeah, so we did have some glitches with the testing this year. I mean, in general, I think, you know, testing lets us know where our students are to standard, and it's a good indication for families to see whether their children are meeting the state's expectations. It's frustrating and unfortunate when you have challenges with the testing, but if
you couldn't get online, right? It was something like they couldn't get online, and it was not a Metro problem or a Williamson County problem. It was a bigger problem. And
I think no one wants to see that happen. And I'm hoping in the future that we figure out those kinks. I was pleased to see that the state legislature stepped in and they said, we'll be held harmless next year with the testing. I mean, one of the things we've been focusing on in Metro Nashville Public Schools is giving fewer tests, but the tests we give make sure they're high quality tests, so they will help inform teachers with teaching and learning. I mean, that's important.
Crystal Miller on Facebook is asking about special education. She says it's often at the bottom of the totem pole. Support staff needs a living wage. They're truly overwhelmed with heavy workloads. What about special education? Special
education has been one of the Board of Education and my top priority in this budget. We put an additional $5 million towards special education and an additional $2.2 million for English language learners. And like I said, one of my top priorities is increasing paraeducator compensation. It's something, even as we're making these cuts, it's one of the top priorities I'm looking at trying to preserve because it's important. We've got to pay people a competitive wage in the city, and particularly those individuals that are working with our neediest students. So to Crystal, I'll say, I hear you, I agree with you, and you have my commitment. We're going to be doing everything we possibly can do to improve special education. It is important, and it's something that is always heavily on my mind.
Let's go to Ashley. Hello, Ashley.
Hello.
Go right ahead. What's on your mind?
Okay, so it's going to be about the buses and the bus drivers. How are we going to incorporate them into this budget, the lack thereof? My child goes to Chadwell Elementary,
yes,
and right now on his bus, his driver has 2 different routes. My child was assaulted for the 2nd time by the same student this past Monday on the bus.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So what can you tell me that you are going to do for these bus drivers to get more on the road and to get our children home safely?
I know we've done much better than in the past hiring bus drivers. I know when I first came in 2 years ago, that was the issue at hand, that we woefully didn't have bus drivers. I think we increased the compensation to help support that, and we've also worked with making sure that we have adequate substitute drivers as we go through. We recently hired a new director of transportation. He came from Gwinnett County, Georgia. He's been here about a year, and he's done an excellent job. He was familiar with the same type of routing systems that we had, and we've minimized the problems that we've had in transportation tremendously. The issue with the safety with your child concerns me. I would immediately contact the principal of the school if you have not done so, and we have to work to resolve that. I don't have lots of tolerance for inappropriate behaviors on buses because it's a safety issue, and we've got to make sure our kids are safe. And if children can't be safe on the bus, they shouldn't be on the bus, and that is a message that we reinforce consistently throughout the district.
Another issue, Phil Williams has done some stories here on our station about the water quality.
Yep.
And there was a story he did last night about that there was lead found in some water that was tested, and so, well, I guess there was someone who brought in some water, and it had high levels of lead and copper in it. The concern, I guess, is that when initial testing was done, those lines were flushed, meaning that they were left on for a long period of time, and then they took the test. This person who brought in some water, a plumber, brought in some water and said, look at what the water is like when the lines are not flushed, and he was very concerned.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, well, I believe that well-intentioned plumber that was in the story, I mean, he's not a water quality expert, and neither am I. What I do know is that we have an obligation to keep our kids safe, and that's why we voluntarily test. We're one of the only districts in the state that is testing for the quality of our water. We did go back and check the water systems there. In that particular instance, we did shut that water off. I think there are 4 staff members that might have had access to it, and it wasn't something that they were drinking, and we did see that was a water fountain that wasn't used, that was just kind of sitting idly in the location. But it's something that we are monitoring closely, have been monitoring, will continue to monitor, and will continue to utilize processes to ensure that our water is safe. I mean, we're working with a company, a third-party vendor named NSafe. And we do this so that our testing follows regulations, and we're doing the best practices known to ensure that it's safe. We take it very seriously. That's why we're spending the money to do it. I mean, you look around in other entities within the city or other school districts around the state and around the country, and they're not testing water. Now, we are for a reason, and when we find something, we make sure we communicate it out to the public so we can be as transparent as possible and as open as possible because it's important to us.
And the concern in that is the flushing of water, right? I guess that they're running water for a long period of time and then testing. And the EPA says don't do that if you're testing in your home.
Yeah.
Should we do that? Does that give you an accurate result when you run the water for a long time and then test?
Well, let's talk a little bit about flushing. You know, the EPA requires a location be flushed a minimum of 6 hours and a maximum of 18 hours before sampling does occur, and we follow those EPA guidelines and best practices.
So you're okay. Are you following? All right, we have to take a break. We'll take a break. If you want to call, there's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.